Don't you dare! You're not going to deny me this opportunity, I said, my voice rising as I stood in Thomas Miller's office doorway. The department head looked up from his desk with a satisfied grin that made my stomach turn. After a decade of dedicated service to Peterson Engineering, this was how it would end? My name is Kaylee Thompson, and at 52, I've spent the last 10 years of my career at one of San Francisco's leading engineering firms. Through 3 company restructures, 2 economic downturns, and countless late nights perfecting designs, I had proven myself invaluable, or so I thought. Kaylee, please sit down. Thomas motioned to the chair across from his desk, his voice carrying that rehearsed sympathy that HR must teach in management training. We're bringing in someone younger for your role. After 10 years, it's time to move on. The words hung in the air between us. Someone younger. Not someone more qualified or experienced, just younger. I felt the familiar heat of indignation rising in my chest, but took a deep breath instead. This wasn't the time for an emotional outburst. I nodded calmly. I appreciate the notice, Thomas. My muted response clearly wasn't what he expected. Thomas blinked, momentarily thrown off script. Well, good. I'm glad you understand. The transition will take place over the next month. We'll need you to train your replacement, Olivia. She graduates from Berkeley next week. I smiled thinly. Of course. What Thomas didn't know, what nobody in the department knew, was that the next board meeting would be special. Very special indeed. Will there be a formal announcement? I asked, my voice steady. We'll announce it at the department meeting on Monday, Thomas replied, already turning his attention back to his computer screen, dismissing me. HR will be in touch about your severance package. I stood up and smoothed my blazer. I see. And the quarterly board meeting is still next Thursday at 2 p.m.? Thomas looked up, confusion flickering across his face. Yes, but that's not something you need to concern yourself with anymore. Just double-checking my calendar, I said lightly. Will CEO Davis be in attendance? Thomas's eyes narrowed slightly. Why do you ask? Just curious, I replied with a shrug. Well, I won't take up any more of your time. As I walked out of his office, I felt strangely calm. 10 years at Peterson Engineering had taught me patience, resilience, and the importance of knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. The next board meeting would reveal everything, and Thomas Miller's smug satisfaction would evaporate faster than morning fog on the bay. Some secrets were worth keeping, even when you were being shown the door. As I walked back to my desk, I couldn't help but smile at the irony of it all. 10 years of dedication reduced to a casual dismissal in a 15-minute meeting. Yet here I was, holding on to information that would completely flip the script. Everything okay? Asked Javier, my colleague from the adjacent cubicle. His eyes held genuine concern. He'd seen too many people walk that same path from Thomas's office, faces drawn with shock and disappointment. Never better, I replied, voice low enough to avoid attracting attention. Just the usual Friday drama. I hadn't told anyone about the private meeting with CEO Catherine Davis 3 weeks ago. It had been unexpected. A call directly to my personal cell on a Sunday afternoon while I was tending to my rooftop garden. Kaylee, we need to talk about your future at Peterson, Catherine had said, her normally formal tone relaxed and direct. Not at the office. Can you meet me at Bayview Cafe tomorrow at 7 a.m.? The memory of that morning was still vivid. Catherine had arrived early, securing a private corner table with a stunning view of the Golden Gate Bridge shrouded in morning mist. I'll get straight to the point, she'd said after we exchanged pleasantries. The board is restructuring our leadership approach. We've been watching your work on the Westlake project. Your innovative solutions saved us millions and impressed our biggest clients. I'd been preparing for bad news, not praise. Thank you, but we want you on the executive board, Catherine had continued, as our new chief operations officer. You understand both the technical and human elements of our business in a way nobody else does. The offer had been unexpected and overwhelming. A seat on the board, overseeing all operational aspects of Peterson Engineering, including Thomas's department. Why me? I'd asked, still processing the magnitude of the opportunity. Because you see what others miss, Catherine had replied simply. And because it's time we had someone at the table who remembers what it's like to be in the trenches. The secrecy had been Catherine's idea. The board vote is just a formality, but I need to manage the politics carefully. Some members, particularly those with connections to Thomas, might try to interfere if they knew beforehand. So I'd signed the contract with only Catherine and the company's legal counsel present. For 3 weeks, I'd attended early morning strategy sessions disguised as vendor meetings in my calendar. I'd reviewed confidential reports and helped draft a new operational framework after hours. All while Thomas plotted my removal. Back at my desk, I checked my phone. A message from Catherine. Contracts filed. Announcement prepared. Still on for Thursday. I texted back a single thumbs-up emoji. For the rest of the afternoon, I diligently worked on transition notes for my supposed replacement. Thomas passed by twice, looking pleased with himself each time. Let him enjoy this moment of perceived victory. The real revelation was just 6 days away. The weekend dragged on endlessly as I prepared for what would undoubtedly be the most consequential week of my career. On Monday morning, I arrived at the office early, dressed in the same professional attire I'd worn for years, nothing that would signal the impending change in my status. The department meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. in the main conference room. I took my usual seat near the middle of the table, not too prominent, not too hidden. As engineers and project managers filtered in, the room buzzed with the usual Monday morning energy, conversations about weekend activities, project deadlines, and industry gossip. Thomas entered last, followed by a young woman I'd never seen before. She couldn't have been older than 23, with a nervous smile and wide eyes that took in the room with undisguised excitement. "Good morning, everyone," Thomas announced, clapping his hands together. "Before we dive into project updates, I have an important announcement." The room quieted immediately. Several of my colleagues glanced in my direction, sensing what was coming. I'd like to introduce Olivia Parker, who will be joining our team as senior design engineer. Over the next month, she'll be working closely with Kali, who will be leaving us to pursue other opportunities. There it was. The corporate euphemism for being pushed out. I kept my expression neutral as curious and sympathetic looks turned my way. "Kaylee has been with us for 10 years, Thomas continued, his tone suggesting he was bestowing a great honor upon me by acknowledging my service. "And we appreciate her contributions. Please make Olivia feel welcome as she transitions into this important role." Olivia gave a small wave. "I'm really excited to join the team. I've heard so many great things about Peterson Engineering." As the meeting progressed through project updates and quarterly targets, I noticed Thomas watching me carefully, perhaps expecting an outburst or sign of distress. Instead, I participated normally, offering insights on my current projects and volunteering to help with a challenging client issue. After the meeting, Olivia approached me tentatively. "Ms. Thompson, Thomas said you'd be showing me the ropes this week." "Of course," I replied, gesturing for her to follow me to my workspace. "And please, call me Kaylee." As we walked, I felt a pang of sympathy for Olivia. She was merely a pawn in Thomas's game, unaware of the complicated dynamics she'd stepped into. "First thing you should know," I said once we reached my desk, "is that engineering at Peterson is as much about politics as it is about technical skill." Olivia looked surprised by my frankness. I thought it would be more merit-based." I smiled. "It should be. Maybe someday it will be again." The next 3 days passed in a blur of knowledge transfer sessions, project handoffs, and careful documentation of my workflow. Through it all, I maintained my professional demeanor, giving Olivia every advantage I could without revealing my true circumstances. On Wednesday afternoon, Catherine called a company-wide meeting for Friday morning, the day after the board meeting. The email mentioned exciting organizational changes and new leadership announcements. Thomas read the message with a frown, clearly not privy to whatever Catherine had planned. Do you know what this is about? He asked me casually as he passed my desk. No idea, I lied smoothly. Perhaps they've finally found someone to fill that VP position that's been vacant. He nodded, satisfied with my ignorance, and walked away. Thursday was approaching rapidly, and with it, the moment of truth. Thursday morning arrived with a strange sense of calm washing over me. I'd prepared for this day meticulously, choosing my outfit with particular care. A tailored charcoal suit I'd purchased for the occasion, accented with a subtle jade silk blouse that brought out the green in my eyes. It was an executive look, though no one would question it as being particularly out of character for me. I arrived at work to find my going-away party in full swing, a sad spread of supermarket cupcakes and lukewarm coffee in the break room. My colleagues had signed a card with generic well wishes and memories of projects we'd tackled together. I accepted their condolences with grace, playing my part in this corporate theater. "We'll miss you around here," said Javier, giving me an awkward side hug. "It won't be the same without your problem-solving magic." "Thank you," I replied, meaning it. Many of these people were genuine colleagues who had no part in Thomas's machinations. I'll miss this team too. Thomas stood at the edge of the gathering, checking his watch frequently. The board meeting was at 2 p.m., and as department head, he'd need to prepare his quarterly presentation. I knew exactly what was in it. I'd helped design the reporting framework years ago. "Kali, could I see you in my office when you're done here?" he asked, not waiting for an answer before walking away. 15 minutes later, I sat across from him, watching as he shuffled papers on his desk. "I wanted to thank you for handling this transition so professionally," he said without looking up. "It's refreshing considering your tenure with the company." The slight emphasis on tenure made it clear what he really meant: my age. It seemed the appropriate response, I replied evenly. Thomas finally met my eyes. "Your severance package is generous. 2 months' salary, plus your unused vacation time. The paperwork will be ready for your signature tomorrow." "I appreciate that." He leaned back in his chair, curiosity finally getting the better of him. "I have to ask, you've been surprisingly calm about all this. Did you see it coming?" I allowed myself a small, enigmatic smile. Let's just say I've learned to prepare for all contingencies in my time here. Thomas's expression hardened slightly. "Well, company needs evolve. Fresh perspectives become necessary. I'm sure you understand." "Completely," I agreed. "Change is inevitable in any organization. Sometimes it comes from unexpected directions." His eyes narrowed at my cryptic response, but before he could press further, his phone buzzed with a reminder. "I need to prepare for the board meeting." "Of course," I said, standing to leave. "Good luck with your presentation. I've always found the board to be quite attentive to details." As I walked out, I could feel his eyes on my back, a new uncertainty in his gaze. My calm acceptance had planted a seed of doubt, exactly as I'd intended. Back at my desk, I fielded a text from Catherine. "Conference room A, 1:30. Come through the executive entrance." I spent the next 2 hours meticulously organizing my desk, backing up personal files, and creating detailed instructions for Olivia. To anyone watching, I was simply being thorough before my departure. At 1:15, I picked up my leather portfolio and headed toward the restroom, a perfectly normal afternoon activity that wouldn't raise suspicions. Once out of sight from the engineering department, I changed course, taking the elevator to the top floor where senior executives had their offices. The executive suite had its own private entrance to the boardroom, a door that I had never had cause to use in my 10 years with the company. Until today. Catherine was waiting for me in the hallway, her normally serious face softened with anticipation. "Ready to make history?" she asked quietly. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "As ready as I'll ever be." "Perfect," she replied, checking her watch. "The other board members are already seated. Thomas will enter through the main door at exactly 2 p.m. Let's make sure we're in position before then." Together, we walked toward the executive entrance to Conference Room A, where everything was about to change. The boardroom of Peterson Engineering exuded power and tradition. 12 high-backed leather chairs surrounded an immense mahogany table that had witnessed decades of critical decisions. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of San Francisco's skyline, a constant reminder of the heights to which the company had climbed. By 1:45 p.m., 10 board members were already seated, engaged in pre-meeting small talk. Catherine nodded subtly toward an empty chair on her right, my designated seat. I felt a momentary flutter of nerves as I took my place, but it quickly subsided as several board members smiled in recognition. William Harrison, the 70-year-old chairman of the board, extended his hand. "Ms. Thompson, we're delighted to finally have you join us officially. Catherine has spoken highly of your operational insights." "Thank you, Mr. Harrison. I appreciate the opportunity," I replied, my voice steady despite the significance of the moment. For the next 10 minutes, I was introduced to each board member. Most knew me by reputation or from previous project presentations, but this interaction was different. I was now their peer, not a subordinate reporting up the chain. At precisely 2 p.m., the main door opened. Thomas entered, carrying his presentation materials and looking confident. He greeted several board members by name as he made his way around the table, placing copies of his report at each seat. Then his eyes landed on me. The change in his expression was subtle but unmistakable. Confusion, followed by disbelief, then rapidly shifting to alarm. "Kaylee? What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice pitched slightly higher than normal. Before I could respond, Catherine stood, commanding the room's attention. "Let's begin," she announced, gesturing for everyone to take their seats. "Before we move to department reports, I have an important announcement." Thomas remained standing, his gaze darting between Catherine and me, clearly trying to piece together what was happening. "Please take a seat, Thomas," Catherine directed, waiting until he complied before continuing. "As you all know, Peterson Engineering has been undergoing strategic restructuring to better position ourselves for the challenges ahead. After extensive evaluation, the executive committee and I have identified critical operational improvements needed across all departments." Thomas fidgeted with his pen, no longer looking at me. "To lead this effort," Catherine continued, "we required someone with deep institutional knowledge, proven technical expertise, and the ability to bridge divisions within our organization. I'm pleased to announce that Kaylee Thompson has accepted the position of Chief Operations Officer, effective immediately." A round of applause filled the room. Several board members nodded approvingly in my direction. As COO, Kaylee will oversee all operational aspects of the company, including engineering, production, supply chain, and quality assurance, Catherine explained, her voice clear and firm. All department heads will report directly to her, creating a more streamlined decision-making process. Thomas's face had drained of color. I wasn't aware of this reorganization," he stammered. "The decision was finalized 3 weeks ago," Catherine replied evenly. "On a need-to-know basis." William Harrison leaned forward. "Ms. Thompson's appointment was unanimously approved by the executive committee. Her first task will be conducting a comprehensive review of all departments, identifying inefficiencies and opportunities for growth." I finally spoke, keeping my voice professional and measured. "I'm looking forward to working with all department heads to optimize our operations. Everyone brings value to this organization, though sometimes it requires the right position to maximize that value." Thomas's eyes met mine, understanding the subtle message. His department was under my purview now. His decision to replace me would be subject to my review. "Now," Catherine said, masterfully moving the meeting forward, "let's proceed with the quarterly reports. Thomas, I believe you're first." Thomas stood on unsteady legs, fumbling with his presentation materials. The confident department head who had dismissed me days earlier was gone, replaced by a man suddenly questioning every decision that had led to this moment. "Before you begin," I interjected gently, I'd like to discuss the staffing changes you proposed earlier this week. Perhaps we should revisit some of those decisions." The silence that followed was profound. Thomas cleared his throat, a bead of sweat visible on his temple. "Perhaps we should discuss departmental staffing after the meeting," he suggested, his voice strained. "Actually," I replied, maintaining a neutral tone, "since it affects the quarterly projections you're about to present, we should address it now." I turned to the board. "Thomas has proposed replacing our senior design engineer, the position I held until today, with a recent graduate who has no industry experience." Several board members exchanged concerned glances. "The Westlake project is entering its most critical phase," I continued. "Changing key personnel now creates unnecessary risk to both timeline and budget." William Harrison frowned. "Is this accurate, Thomas?" "The Westlake contract represents 20% of our annual revenue." Thomas's presentation folder trembled slightly in his hands. "I believed fresh perspectives would benefit the team," he said, the words sounding hollow even to his own ears. "But obviously, with the new organizational structure, we can reassess." "Indeed," I agreed. "In fact, I've already spoken with Diana Ford about stepping into the role. Her 15 years of experience and familiarity with the Westlake specifications make her the logical choice." Catherine nodded approvingly. "Diana is an excellent engineer. I support this decision." The look of defeat on Thomas's face was unmistakable, but he managed to proceed with his quarterly report. His usually confident delivery was replaced by hesitation and frequent references to notes. When he finished, the questions from board members were pointed and occasionally critical, a stark contrast to the easy reception he typically enjoyed. As the meeting progressed through other departmental updates, I made careful notes and asked thoughtful questions that demonstrated my comprehensive understanding of the company's operations. By the time we reached new business items, the dynamic in the room had shifted palpably. Board members increasingly directed their questions to me, rather than Catherine or the department heads. Near the meeting's conclusion, Catherine introduced another agenda item. "As part of our restructuring, we'll be reviewing each department's age demographics and succession planning strategies. Recent data suggests our most innovative solutions have come from cross-generational collaboration." She displayed a slide showing productivity metrics across different age groups. "As you can see, teams with age diversity consistently outperform homogeneous groups. Kali will be leading an initiative to ensure we maintain healthy age distribution throughout the organization." I caught Thomas's eye across the table. "Experience and fresh perspectives both have value when properly integrated," I said. "I look forward to working with all department heads to optimize their team compositions." The meeting adjourned at 4:30 p.m. As board members gathered their materials and engaged in post-meeting conversations, Thomas approached me cautiously. "Congratulations on your promotion," he said stiffly. "Had I known, you'd have made different decisions," I finished for him. "I understand completely." He nodded uncomfortably. "About Olivia." "She's talented but inexperienced," I said. "I think she'd benefit from our junior engineer development program, rather than being thrown into a senior role prematurely. Don't you agree?" Thomas knew he had no choice. "Of course, I'll inform her of the change." "No need," I replied. "As COO, I should welcome all new employees personally. I'll meet with her tomorrow to discuss her actual role and set appropriate expectations." Catherine joined us, effectively ending the conversation. "Kaylee, the executive team is gathering for dinner at Bayside Restaurant at 7. We'd love for you to join us." "I'd be delighted," I said, collecting my notes. As Thomas walked away, Catherine watched him with a calculating expression. "He'll either adapt or find himself increasingly marginalized," she observed quietly. "Everyone eventually faces the consequences of their decisions," I replied. "Some sooner than others." The sun was setting over San Francisco Bay as I left the boardroom through the executive entrance. Not as a visitor this time, but as someone who belonged there. Tomorrow, the company-wide announcement would make my new position official, but today's reversal of fortune was satisfaction enough. The 10 years I'd invested in Peterson Engineering had finally paid off, though not in the way Thomas had intended when he'd called me into his office with that satisfied grin just days ago. Friday morning's company-wide meeting brought a palpable buzz to the auditorium. Employees from every department gathered, whispering speculations about the organizational changes mentioned in Catherine's email. I stood backstage with Catherine and the executive team, dressed in a navy suit that signaled my new authority while still feeling true to myself. "Nervous?" Catherine asked, straightening her blazer. "Surprisingly, no," I replied. "It feels right." At exactly 9 a.m., Catherine took the stage to enthusiastic applause. I watched from the wings as she outlined Peterson Engineering's vision for the future, emphasizing innovation, collaboration, and strategic growth. "To lead us through this next chapter," Catherine announced, "I'm pleased to introduce our new Chief Operations Officer, Kaylee Thompson." As I walked onto the stage, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Engineers who had worked alongside me for years stood in applause. Project managers who had seen my solutions save impossible deadlines cheered. Even the administrative staff with whom I'd always maintained respectful relationships showed their approval. Thomas sat in the third row, clapping mechanically, his expression unreadable. "Thank you," I began, waiting for the applause to subside. "For 10 years, I've had the privilege of solving problems at Peterson Engineering. Today, I'm honored to help shape our collective future." I outlined my vision for operational excellence, emphasizing collaboration across generations and departments. "Experience and fresh perspectives both have tremendous value," I said, making brief eye contact with Thomas. "Our strength lies in harnessing both." After the presentation, employees approached to offer congratulations. Olivia, looking slightly confused, waited until most had dispersed. "Ms. Thompson, Kaylee," she began tentatively. "I'm a little unclear about my position now." I smiled reassuringly. "Let's meet in my office in an hour. I think you have great potential, just not in the role Thomas originally proposed." As the crowd thinned, I spotted Javier giving me a knowing grin and a thumbs up from across the room. Perhaps he'd suspected something all along. The transition into my role as COO happened more smoothly than anyone might have expected. By Monday morning, I had moved into the executive suite on the top floor, a spacious corner office with windows overlooking the Bay Bridge. The contrast to my former cubicle was striking, but I made sure to bring along the small jade plant that had survived 10 years of engineering crises with me. Some continuity was important. My first official week was packed with meetings, getting to know each department head personally, reviewing ongoing projects, and assessing operational bottlenecks. I made a point of being visible throughout the building, visiting departments and speaking directly with employees at all levels. This wasn't just good leadership. It was a message that the barriers between executives and staff were being dismantled. Thomas had been notably subdued. Our first one-on-one meeting had been brief and focused strictly on his department's metrics. He avoided direct eye contact and kept his responses clipped and professional. I neither gloated nor referenced our previous dynamics, treating him with the same respectful professionalism I showed all department heads. On Friday afternoon, Catherine stopped by my office with 2 cups of coffee. "So, 1 week in, how does it feel?" she asked, settling into the chair across from my desk. "Challenging in all the right ways," I replied honestly. "There's so much opportunity for improvement." She nodded, looking pleased. "The board is impressed with your approach so far. William Harrison specifically mentioned your talent for asking the right questions." "I've had years to think about what I'd do differently if given the chance," I admitted. Catherine smiled knowingly. "That's exactly why you were the right choice. Oh, and I thought you'd want to know. Thomas has requested a transfer to our Seattle office." "Running away?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "He claims it's for family reasons," Catherine replied. "But we both know better." I considered this news thoughtfully. "Let's approve it," Sometimes a fresh start benefits everyone. Catherine raised her coffee cup in a small toast. Spoken like a true executive,